Why is the world still blind to what India is building? For years and years, everyone told the same story about India. Crowded slums, never-ending traffic jams, people struggling just to survive. That's what the cameras showed. That's what the news said. Over and over again. And slowly people started to believe it was the whole truth. But what if they were missing something big? What if, while everyone kept repeating those old ideas, India was quietly building something incredible, something the world wasn't even paying attention to? Recently, India did something truly amazing, something only a few countries have ever done. It switched on a brand new nuclear reactor. This reactor produces 700 megawatts of clean, reliable energy. That's enough power to bring light and life to 500,000 homes. Think about that for a moment. 500,000 families. Children doing homework under bright lights. Small businesses running their machines. Dreams coming alive because there's electricity. And here's the part that should give you goosebumps. 10 more reactors just like this one are already being built. This isn't just one lucky moment. This isn't a fluke. This is India building its future with its own hands. All across the country, in cities most people outside India have never even heard of, something extraordinary is happening. India is creating tomorrow, not with fancy speeches, not with empty promises, with steel, with technology, with concrete, with computer code, real things, solid things, things you can touch and see and feel. Why does the world still see India as it was, instead of what it's becoming? Why do the old stories stick around when the new reality is so much more powerful? Maybe it's easier to repeat what everyone already thinks. Maybe people don't want to believe that things can change so fast. Or maybe the world just isn't ready to see India rise. But here's the truth that matters. India isn't waiting for permission to be great. India is building, growing, rising. Whether the world watches or not, whether they believe it or not, India is writing a new story. And it's just getting started. So stay with us because in this video, we'll explore the giant projects that are rewriting India's future. Let's talk about something small, incredibly small, a semiconductor chip. It's tiny, fits on the tip of your finger, but without it, nothing in the modern world works. Not your phone, not your car, not the hospital equipment saving lives right now. For years, India assembled the devices. It put together the laptops, the smartphones, the gadgets that people across the globe use every single day. But the brain of those devices, that critical chip inside, it came from somewhere else. Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, China. India built the body, but someone else always controlled the mind. And that dependence, it cost the country $24 billion every single year. When the pandemic hit and supply chains broke, the consequences were brutal. Factories went silent. Production lines stopped. Car manufacturers lost billions because they couldn't get chips. One disruption in East Asia, and India's entire manufacturing engine stuttered. That's what dependency looks like. But in February 2024, something shifted. India approved 3 massive semiconductor projects. Not small labs, not experimental units, full-scale fabrication plants. Tata Group partnered with Taiwan's Powerchip to build the country's first chip manufacturing facility in Dholera, Gujarat. The investment? 91,000 crore rupees. The capacity? 50,000 wafers every single month. Micron, a global giant, committed over $800 million to set up an assembly and testing unit. Another facility is being built to produce 15 million chips. Every single day. Since then, 4 more projects have been cleared. Across 6 states, total investments nearing 1.6 lakh crore rupees. This isn't just about making chips. This is about refusing to be left behind. Again, India isn't copying what others did 20 years ago. It's leaping ahead, targeting silicon carbide chips and compound semiconductors, the kind that will power the next generation of defense systems, electric vehicles, and AI. The first Made in India chip is expected by 2026. And when it arrives, it won't just be a product, it will be a statement. But there's a problem no one talks about. Here's the truth most people don't know. You can't build advanced chips without massive, rock-solid power. A single semiconductor factory needs between 100 and 150 megawatts of electricity. That's enough to power 100,000 homes. And it has to be flawless. A single flicker, one tiny voltage drop, and an entire batch of chips, worth millions, is destroyed. Companies like TSMC, the world's biggest chip maker, won't even build a factory unless the power grid is absolutely bulletproof. Taiwan designed its entire national grid around that need. TSMC alone consumes 9% of the country's total electricity. China did the same. Built extra capacity so industries never have to worry about blackouts. But India? For years, the grid wasn't that reliable. Summer load shedding, voltage dips, industrial zones still facing power cuts. So how do you solve that? You go nuclear. In March 2025, a 700 megawatt reactor in Rajasthan was connected to the national grid. In April, contracts were signed for 2 more reactors in Kaiga. By September, the foundation was laid for 4 more at Mahi Banswara. 10 nuclear reactors, all under construction at the same time, each one capable of producing 700 megawatts of clean, uninterrupted power. India's nuclear target? 100 gigawatts by 2047. Right now, the country has about 8. For comparison, the United States has 96 gigawatts. But most of those reactors were built in the 70s. China has 68 and plans to hit 200 by 2035. So why does this matter? Because nuclear energy doesn't care about weather. It doesn't stop when the sun sets or the wind dies. It can't be choked off by an oil embargo or a shipping crisis. It runs, day and night, through heat waves, through storms, through geopolitical chaos. It gives India something no amount of solar or wind ever could: a foundation, a base layer of power that never wavers. And without that foundation, none of the rest is possible. The city built to bring the money home? For years, Indian startups and investment firms registered their companies abroad: Singapore, Dubai, Mauritius. Not because they didn't love India, but because doing business there was easier, faster, cleaner. Singapore's corporate tax rate, 17%. Dubai offered tax-free zones. Mauritius became the preferred route for global investors because of its treaties with India. Meanwhile, India's financial system felt slow, buried in red tape, complicated beyond reason. So Indian money stayed outside India. That's the gap GIFT City was built to close. GIFT stands for Gujarat International Finance Tech City. It's India's first international financial services center, a planned city built from scratch, designed to bring global finance onto Indian soil. Spread across nearly 900 acres between Ahmedabad and Gandhinagar, it has modern office towers, residential complexes, and fully digital infrastructure. But what really sets it apart are the rules. Companies in GIFT City get a 10-year tax holiday. They don't pay GST inside the zone. They can settle transactions in US dollars in real time, within seconds. By the end of 2024, over 720 entities had registered there. Foreign banks, fintech companies, insurance firms, investment funds. The goal is simple: bring Indian money back to India. And it's working. Large asset managers are setting up headquarters. Foreign banks are opening units. Even the NSE and BSE have trading operations for global investors inside GIFT City. If it succeeds, India can replicate this model. Specialized zones for manufacturing, for logistics, for technology, each built to global standards from day one. But finance is only one kind of power. Technology is another. The nation that touched the moon. In August 2023, India made history. It landed a spacecraft on the moon. Only 3 countries had ever done it before. A few months later, in January 2024, India's first solar observatory went online. Aditya L1. It studies the sun from 1.5 million kilometers away. And now, the next mission is Gaganyaan, India's first human spaceflight program. ISRO has already tested the escape system for the crew capsule. Unmanned missions are planned before the end of 2025. And soon after, Indian astronauts will be sent into space. If successful, India will become the 4th country ever to send humans into space on its own. But ISRO's ambitions don't stop there. By 2035, India plans to build its own space station, a permanent platform in orbit, for research, for satellite maintenance, for long-duration missions. This isn't just about science. Space capability changes how a country sees the world, how it communicates, how it defends itself. Every modern military depends on satellites for navigation, for communication, for surveillance. Without them, a country loses sight of what's happening beyond its borders. That's why India's progress in space matters so much. It strengthens national security, it supports industries that rely on satellite data, and it builds confidence that India can handle high-risk, high-tech projects on its own. All of this has been achieved on a fraction of what other countries spend. But to be a true power, India also needs strength at sea. Look at a world map. India sits right at the center of the Indian Ocean, and that ocean is one of the busiest trade routes on Earth. Almost 80% of the world's oil trade passes through it. Those same waters carry India's energy imports, and they carry China's too. Controlling these routes means controlling the flow of global trade, and to do that, a country needs a blue water navy. Most countries only have coastal navies. They defend ports and nearby waters, but a blue water navy can operate far from home, across oceans, for months at a time. Only a few nations have this capability: the United States, China, Russia, the United Kingdom, France, and now India. In September 2022, India commissioned its first indigenous aircraft carrier, INS Vikrant, designed and built entirely in India, weighing 45,000 tons. An aircraft carrier is more than just a ship. It's a floating airbase. It allows India to launch fighter jets and helicopters from the middle of the ocean without needing anyone's permission or territory. With INS Vikrant and INS Vikramaditya both operational, India now joins a very small group of countries capable of dual-carrier operations. In January 2025, the Navy commissioned 3 new warships on the same day: a destroyer, a frigate, a submarine, all built in India. Negotiations are underway for 6 advanced submarines. Plans are moving forward for additional vessels. The long-term target? A fleet of 200 warships by 2035. Why does this matter? Because sea power decides who keeps trade routes open and who can close them when needed. India's position gives it a natural advantage. Any ship moving from the Middle East to East Asia has to pass near Indian waters. This allows India to secure its own supply lines, and if ever necessary, to disrupt an enemy's. Space gives India eyes. The Navy gives it reach. And the next project, it adds a new way to connect continents through trade. The corridor that bypasses the enemy. China has spent the last decade building the world's largest infrastructure network, the Belt and Road Initiative. It connects ports, railways, and highways across Asia, Africa, and Europe. Over 150 countries are involved. China has poured trillions of dollars into it. But one part of that network runs straight through Gilgit-Baltistan, territory that India claims as its own. That route is called the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC. And because of it, India refused to join the Belt and Road project. That decision came with a cost. Almost every overland route from India to Central Asia or Europe passes through Pakistan. For decades, that meant India had no direct land connection to the West. Then in September 2023, something changed. At the G20 summit in New Delhi, world leaders announced the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC. IMEC is a mix of railways, ports, and shipping routes that link India to Europe through the Middle East. Goods will travel from Indian ports to the UAE by sea, then move by rail through Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel, and finally reach Europe by ship. Along this path, the plan includes fiber optic cables for data, hydrogen pipelines for clean fuel, digital networks for faster communication. If completed, IMEC could cut transport time and cost between India and Europe by 30 to 40%. And for the first time, India would have a trade corridor to Europe that doesn't rely on Pakistan. Of course, the project is still in its early stages. Diplomatic talks are ongoing. Political tensions in the region have slowed things down. But even so, IMEC matters because it gives India and its partners, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Israel, and the European Union, a shared vision for a new trade network. It also provides the world with an alternative to China's Belt and Road model. one that focuses on transparency and collaboration instead of debt and control. It strengthens India's role in the Middle East. It deepens its partnership with Europe, and it connects three major regions that together account for over half of the world's economy. For years, people said India could never build a bullet train. Too complicated, too expensive, too ambitious. The Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail project was announced years ago, and from the beginning, critics doubted it would ever be completed. But step by step, that picture started to change. By September 2025, more than 323 kilometers of viaduct and nearly 400 kilometers of piers were already built, out of a total corridor length of 508 kilometers. At Sabarmati, the main station structure is complete. Interiors are underway. The first stretch in Gujarat is expected to open around 2027. The full line could be ready by 2028. This project is being built using Japanese Shinkansen technology, the same system that made Japanese bullet trains famous for their speed and reliability. The bullet train is proof that India can handle complex, high-precision engineering projects on time and at a global standard. Once operational, this corridor will do more than move people faster. It will link two major industrial hubs, create thousands of jobs, boost tourism and trade along the route. But fast passenger trains are only one part of the story. The real foundation of any industrial economy lies in how quickly it can move goods, not just people. And that's what the next project is all about. The tracks that will move a nation. Every developed country has one thing in common: efficient logistics. The faster raw materials reach factories and finished goods reach ports, the stronger the economy becomes. For a long time, India struggled with this. Freight trains shared the same tracks as passenger trains. That meant delays, congestion, higher costs. Trucks filled the gap, but the highways became overcrowded and slow. That gap is finally narrowing with the dedicated freight corridors, one on the eastern side, one on the western side. These are rail lines built only for cargo, designed to move goods at high speed without waiting for passenger trains. By March 2025, India had completed 2,741 kilometers out of a total 2,843 kilometers. The last 102-kilometer stretch, connecting the Western Corridor to JNPT port near Mumbai, is expected to be finished by the end of 2025. Every few decades, a new technology changes how the world works. In the 20th century, it was electricity, then computers, then the internet. In the 21st century, the next revolution is quantum technology, and India wants to be ready for it. Quantum computers don't work like normal computers. They use quantum bits, or qubits, which can exist in multiple states at once. That means they can perform complex calculations that even today's supercomputers would take thousands of years to finish. This power can change everything, from how new medicines are developed to how data is secured. That's why countries like the US and China are spending billions to master it first. Whoever leads quantum computing will control the future of cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and scientific research. India launched its own national quantum mission to make sure it's part of the race. The mission has a budget of about 6,000 crores spread over 8 years. It has 4 thematic hubs at IISc Bengaluru, IIT Madras, IIT Bombay, and IIT Delhi. Together, they bring 152 researchers from 43 institutions, all working on quantum computing, communications, sensing, and materials. The goal? To build secure quantum networks, advanced sensors, and even India's own quantum computers. This is about building independence in technologies that will soon be critical for defense, for finance, for health. Right now, India might still be early in the quantum race, but it's building the right foundation: the people, the labs, the ecosystem needed to compete at the highest level possible. And while this project explores the smallest building blocks of the universe, India is also preparing to explore something just as vast: the deep ocean. About 6 kilometers below the surface of the ocean lies a world that is still unexplored. The seabed there is covered with small, round rocks called polymetallic nodules. These nodules are rich in cobalt, nickel, copper, and rare earth elements, materials used in electric vehicles, solar panels, wind turbines, modern electronics, At present, most of these minerals come from land-based mines, and China controls a majority of the market. It produces about 60% of the world's rare earth supply. That's why several countries are now developing the technology to reach the ocean depths. The United States, Russia, Japan, China, all of them already operate submersibles capable of exploring the deep sea. And now India is joining the group. Through its Samudrayan program, part of the Deep Ocean Mission, Samudrayan aims to send a manned submersible called Matsya 6000 to a depth of 6,000 meters. Early in 2025, the Ministry of Earth Sciences confirmed that wet tests were completed successfully. The next goal, to conduct a 500-meter sea trial before the end of the year. The submersible's pressure sphere, designed to keep 3 people safe under immense pressure, was co-developed with engineers from ISRO. The same precision that India applies to space technology is now being used under the ocean. Once operational, this mission will allow India to explore the central Indian Ocean basin for critical minerals and conduct advanced research in marine science. Only a few nations have the ability to operate at these depths. When India achieves it, it will not only gain access to valuable resources, it will also join a very small club of countries capable of deep-sea exploration. Samudrayan shows how India is expanding its scientific reach, from space above to the ocean floor below, using its own expertise, its own technology, its own ambition. Superpowers are not built in a day. They are built decision by decision, policy by policy, project by project. They take shape quietly, through choices that compound over time, long before the world notices the result. For decades, India was seen through a familiar lens. Slow growth, cautious ambition, endless delays. A country of potential that never quite arrived. That lens is cracking, because something fundamental has changed. India is no longer waiting for the future to arrive. It is engineering it. The country is building faster, compressing timelines that once stretched across generations. It is thinking bigger, moving from incremental progress to systems-level transformation. And it is executing projects that once seemed politically impossible, financially unrealistic, or technologically out of reach. Nuclear power is no longer a footnote. It is becoming the backbone of long-term energy security. Semiconductor fabs are laying the foundation for a domestic technology ecosystem in a world where chips define power. Gift City is positioning India as a serious node in global finance, not just a back office for it. ISRO is expanding India's presence beyond Earth, lowering launch costs, increasing cadence, and redefining who gets access to space. The Navy is extending its operational reach, safeguarding trade routes that carry the lifeblood of the global economy. High-speed rail and dedicated freight corridors are reshaping how people move, how goods flow, and how regions integrate. The National Quantum Mission is preparing India for the next computing revolution, one that will redraw the balance of technological advantage. And Samudrayan is pushing into the deep ocean, opening access to the last great frontier on Earth, where resources, science, and strategy converge. Each of these projects serves a different purpose, different ministries, different timelines, different technologies. But together they tell a single story, a story of a country that has stopped explaining its potential and started demonstrating its capacity, a country that is no longer defined by what it hopes to become, but by what it is actively building. So the real question is no longer whether India will rise. It is this: how long will the world keep looking at India through the past, while India is already constructing the future? Subscribe, not just for more videos, but for more conversations about where India is actually heading, not where the world assumes it's stuck. Because this transformation isn't abstract. It's being built by real people, real decisions, and real ambition right now. Share this video if you're tired of outdated narratives. If you want others to see India not as a promise, but as a project in motion, and tell us in the comments, what should we explore next? Which sector, which mission, which decision do you think will define the next decade? This story is still being written, and the more voices that engage with it, question it,